session. Welcome everyone this evening. So we'll go ahead and start. Let's see. Larry, do you want to kick it off here?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We've been meeting with our professional service partners for the last several months, and tonight is a bit of the culmination to bringing our last professional service partner to the council meeting in request of asking them to give a bit of an introduction on the organization and perhaps some of their oversight on the particular topic. Tonight we've got the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority, sometimes known as PCWA, and Mr. Joe Singleton is here tonight, and it looks like he's got our representative from Casa Grande, Mr. Craig McFarland, by his side as well. This particular entity is a little different than our other professional services partners in the sense that there's some statutory responsibility that we have within Pinal County. And while I think technically we are a member of the organization, it does give us an opportunity to have a seat on the board. And so I don't want to steal any of Joe's thunder, so I'll hand the baton to him and let him give all of you a bit more information on PCWA and the emphasis on water. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for that introduction, Larry. Mayor Fitzgibbons, Council, thank you for having us back. As Larry has alluded to, I am Joe Singleton, and I've been the Executive Director of the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority for the last 15 years. Snuck up on me, too. Prior to that, I spent about 13 years over at the Department of Water Resources, and I was the last AMA director to have an office in Casa Grande. So I do have a couple of slides. Thank you to Mr. Weaver for the save on the slide deck when I got here. But the Augmentation Authority is a corporate and political body that can act on its own official corporate name. We're enfranchised in Title 45, which is the statutes that have a lot of the groundwater stuff in it, as our own political subdivision of the state. The name's a little bit of a misnomer. We're not an office of the county, and our geographical footprint isn't even all of Pinal County. It's based on the Pinal AMA Basin, which is defined by DWR as 5 subbasins within it, the 2 biggest of which are the Eloy Subbasin and the Maricopa Stanfield one, and that's where you're pumping your groundwater from. So our goal is to support development of responsible, collaborative, and sustainable water planning and management within that area that I just delineated. So a little further for some activities, regional water planning, assist providers in meeting the requirements of the Groundwater Management Act of 1980. That covers a lot of ground. Cooperating in augmentation of water supplies and represents the AMA interest in developing Arizona water policy, which is what I've spent a lot of this year doing so far. So our board members, Mr. Rains introduced one of them, Mr. McFarland, who I still occasionally call Mayor. I am sorry, Mayor Fitzgibbons, does still represent the city of Casa Grande. I assume he worked that out with you. He told me he did. Supervisor Steve Miller represents Pinal County. Melissa Campbell is representing Coolidge. David Malowitz is representing Eloy. Well, I could read all the names, but we have a mix of citizens, elected officials, and city staff. It makes a really good mix. One of the more interesting things is we also have two members of irrigation districts on our board. You don't always see municipal water use and agricultural water use mixed on groups like this, so I think that really provides a nice perspective, as well as 2 large private water companies on there to get their perspective as for utilities that are regulated through the ACC and don't just have their rates set by a mayor and council. Our chairman, Bill Collins, also represents Papago Buttes Domestic Water Improvement District. So he brings a different perspective of some smaller pumpers that aren't dealing with, say, well fields on the scale of some of the other larger ones. So I have an activity update, things we've just been up to over the last several years, and some that are been ongoing till more recently. We hired Matrix New World to analyze DWR's late 2019 groundwater model of the AMA and suggest changes. The impetus to that is they'd been holding on to the model for a long time. They kept telling folks that we couldn't necessarily get new assured water supplies down here because they weren't sure about the groundwater quantity, but they didn't want to tell us exactly what it was. There was a legislative process that kind of forced their hand on releasing the model. And more so than actually taking issue with the nuts and bolts of the model, there were some corrections that the matrix work suggested that I think they did implement. But even beyond that was the way that they were making their assured water supply assumptions for that program based off of that model. And that's where a lot of our work went into, was suggesting things like different well spacing that was still within regulations and some things like that to where you could look ahead at that 100-year projection and have it be a little better than what they were saying. So we substantially supported the technical work of the Pinal stakeholder group that was kind of leading that effort, did submit a package of recommended changes to the department on the way that that program is administered. And we're still waiting for some results in response to that, although there has been quite a bit of back and forth, mostly with department hydrology staff since the time we submitted that. That ties in to some other activities we've done. ADAS stands for Alternative Pathway to a Designation of Assured Water Supply. And it was passed a year ago and has subsequently been sued twice before being implemented. Designed to allow within the assured water supply rules a way for continued subdivision development, despite what that groundwater modeling shows as a lack of physical availability in our AMA and in the Phoenix AMA to a different scale. This was a program that would recognize the deficit in the physical availability and make some allowances, mostly in exchange for some additional replenishment and some accounting for some groundwater use that isn't accounted for under the current version of the rules. So you'll see the last bullet on this slide, accounting for non-subdivision use. When you're designated, you got to account for all the water use. When you just do certificates, you only account for the subdivisions that came in post-1995. This would allow additional groundwater use, but require all of that to actually be accounted for. Arizona Water tells me that they're looking at it and going to try to submit an application to do that, which if it were accepted and the program continued to stay in place through the legal challenges, would allow for them to go ahead and take new plats on and for subdivision work to continue. Right now, there's kind of a companion piece to that idea. It's being called Ag to Urban. And it's designed to provide a physical availability credit towards the physical availability of groundwater, which is one of the assured water supply requirements that you have to meet to put a subdivision in, through a relinquishment of the ag water right. I'm using relinquish advisedly because there's so many other words that have a different legal meaning within the Department of Water Resources context. So this would require the land to meet some irrigation history criteria, and there's two processes going on right now involving a DWR process where they're looking at kind of housing this concept within the current assured water supply rules, which they would amend to take it in. And there's a legislative process currently going on that contemplates it through a statutory change. They're still pretty far apart. They are talking to each other, but the way they're looking at certain key elements is a little apples and oranges, so I'm not sure how that's all going to come together or if it is. The Senate group is supposed to meet again tomorrow, so I'm hopeful I'll hear a little bit more on the plans for that one. Right now, we have a bill in process to clean up some of our bonding language. Our original statutes were passed in 1993. For those of you who may have been following water stuff for a long time, it's in the middle of them trying to figure out how to accommodate assured water supplies. They hadn't enacted the GRD stuff yet. And this was part of a Pinal response in trying to get ahead of something. And it was a pretty good one, except that it didn't have an appropriation tied to it like the GRD did to go buy water to take care of what they were trying to take care of. Consequently, we can do revenue bonding. We can't do general obligation bonds, but we never actually used the language. So we had it reviewed by bonding attorneys, Greenberg Traurig, Stifel Nichols Company, who recently did the amendment to all the WIFA language. And they made a set of recommended changes. So right now, I think I got an email from my lobbyist about 45 minutes ago saying we passed out a House cow today. So it'll be ready for final consideration over there when they might choose to calendar that. So we're still alive, and I'm hopeful it'll go through. It could end up being an important tool, especially if we end up with water from a modified Bartlett Dam. So we became a steering committee member and a cost share partner for the feasibility study to look at a Bartlett Dam modification as some alternatives to some stuff that Salt River Project was looking at in order to mitigate losing capacity at Horseshoe Dam. It's silted up quite a bit since they put it in. And when they did a study on what it was going to cost to regain that capacity from it silting up, creating additional capacity at Bartlett looked more cost effective than actually trying to dredge out the capacity at a Horseshoe. So it hasn't been all the way through the process with the feds yet, but this is kind of the idea where we're all coming from. So we're hopeful that it'll result in some new surface water supplies by making the dam taller and therefore being able to hold more surface water behind it. So that's what us and all of the other partners are kind of hoping for right now. And it's struggling through all the kinds of things that those kinds of processes go through, and the construction costs are going up, and people are starting to get tight and talk about lawsuits. So we'll see how that one goes. The last one is, this is an activity from a couple years ago where we instituted a study to look at a regional cloud seeding program, and got some really surprising results back. But for cloud seeding, they use crystals or salts to seed the clouds that foster more rainfall or more efficient rainfall. The seeding agent, and there's a couple of choices, are obviously environmentally safe. But when they looked at our area, they said there was about 23 days during the summer that might be appropriate for cloud seeding, and it could result in a whole lot of additional water at a fairly reasonable cost. The trade-off is we can't really control where the water falls when it falls. But I did ask one of my agricultural board members if they got enough rain to skip one watering cycle during the summer, how much it would result in, and it was enough to pay for the program. So it's something we're still taking a look at. There is some concern, although there's studies that says it's safe and it's inactive and insoluble in water with the main seeding agent. And in particular, one of the Indian tribes expressed some concerns about us using that. We're actually recently gone back to the consultant and looked to see what kind of a cost proposal they could put together if we were to do that program with a salt agent. So basically a calcium chloride type agent, same kind of thing that's in Gatorade and a bunch of other stuff we already consume. So those are the kinds of things we've been up to, I guess, over the last couple of years, some of which are ongoing. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you might have them. It's easy to go into the weeds on some of this stuff, and I usually try to stay out of it unless you want to go there with me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Who wants to go in the weeds? No questions at this time? No? Okay.
I have. We, as a council, we get a lot of information on effluent and managing that, selling that. Are you tied into that at all? Is there a connection?
I haven't been the one sending you the information, but if you want to talk about it, we can.
Briefly.
Well, I know in the last 25 years, I've been through probably 3 cycles with the city where they come up with a grand plan for the effluent that involves making a project that looks like Gilbert or Avondale, and then we talk about it until it runs into regulatory problems and put it back on a shelf for a while. And I don't remember when the last time we had a discussion like that was. I think it was probably before, I think it was while you were looking at expanding the treatment plant the last time. And it's doable, and it's a great source of water, and you guys do control it. The issue with using effluent is you have to match the water quality with what you want to do with the water, which may or may not require some additional treatment, which means money. And oftentimes, the best place to use the effluent isn't necessarily right next door to the treatment plant, so then you got to put in distribution lines to get it to where it's the most use, which also means money. So those are some of the challenges. I know we turned the regional park into almost a rice paddy in the past to try to accommodate it because it has to go somewhere when it leaves the treatment plant. But it is becoming more sophisticated, and as the cost of other water supplies keeps going up, treating it to some standard to where it's of more use is becoming more and more palatable.
Okay,
No pun intended.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, well, just real quick on the effluent, I know one of our plans was great until we found out the ground right there was not very good for recharging, so it goes back to cost of running it somewhere, and it has to be within a mile to get the credits. But we went to, some of us went to the CAP dinner the other night, and they were talking about our water supply and everything, and it wasn't a lot of good news. Do you have any good news for us? Like,
Odd you would bring it up, but I talked to our lawyer at lunchtime, Mr. Cooper, and he said, thanks for making me feel better. And he meant it ironically. Do I have good news? The one thing I try to leave people with that don't have to do water every day is you're in pretty much no danger of going home tonight, turning on your tap, and have it spit sand at you. You're fine that way. When we talk about some of the water challenges that we're faced with, we're talking about math that goes out 100 years. That's how the State Assured Water Supply Program works. You have to account for 100 years of your groundwater demand. So it's easy to get lost in the hoopla of all of this, and there's a lot of interest in subdivision growth, most of it for, some of it not for. Whether we're going to go to all rental units because that gets around assured water supplies, or the fact that home prices keep going up and are harder and harder for new homeowners to come in and get themselves a house. What we're talking about is water supplies that are 100 years out in the future. You and I are okay. I'm in my late 50s. I'm probably okay during the time I need to be personally concerned. We're talking about concern for our children and our grandchildren. And I personally think it's fortunate that there are some state laws that kind of speak to it and look that far ahead, because I've had conversations over the last 25 years with people from Australia and LA and some places that just off the top of my head, I would have thought would have put a lot of thought into how these kinds of things work just because of their environment. And I came away finding out, no, they really haven't, because they're asking me what to do. So that's the thought I would try to leave you with. But I mean, it's well worth paying attention to this stuff. It's just among everybody in the room, I think I'm the only one who ought to lose sleep over it.
I appreciate that. And the other thing is I'm glad we have a local organization lobbying for our water because, again, at the CAP, the Pinal AMA, if most people don't know, has taken the majority of cuts out of any place in Arizona. And it seems to be that they kind of, well, since we're the least populated area in the state as far as this water stuff goes in the AMAs, we usually get the dry bucket, right? So
yeah,
I'm glad that we have you guys advocating for us on different levels and remembering.
I appreciate that, and Mr. McFarland would like to remind me that there are two organizations doing that, because I believe the Pinal Partnership is.
Yeah. Well, you were here too, Craig. So
I do appreciate that, and our growers have taken the lion's share of those shortages in a state that took the majority of the shortages off the Colorado system just by design. We agreed to a junior status years and years ago to get the canal built. It was something that the California federal delegation kind of forced on us, and that I've always assumed begrudgingly accepted. I hope it was begrudging anyway, but we do get the earliest cuts, and the CAP system takes those cuts, and the agricultural water is among the first supplies cut, and that's the situation that we have been faced with. And you asked me to make you feel better, and I don't know if I can do that, but to make to compound matters, Pinal actually only has one representative to the CAP board. They kind of weighted it by population, so there's several Pima County members and a bunch of Maricopa County ones. And I guess the good news is our one is Steve Miller, and he's not very shy, so.
And he has your ear, right? Oh, your ear. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
for being here, and Craig, thank you for continuing to represent the city. I know you're keeping us abreast of what's going on, so please continue to let us know how we, as a city, can help those efforts. Okay. Next on the agenda.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, let me just spend a few minutes before I hand the baton to Mr. Tice to talk about our next topic. All of you should have received an email from me last week describing what we thought was going to be a very fruitful discussion at a study session related to some proposed zoning code text amendments that, quite frankly, Paul's been working on for probably 9 months or more. And really dealing with development review process, public engagement, and notification processes. And for the mayor and council and all of our residents to kind of understand the context, there have been the last 2 or 3 legislative sessions, there's been a number of bills that have been considered. Some of those have made it through and been vetoed, related to the state controlling our zoning capabilities at a local level. I believe that Casa Grande has been one of the few municipalities that have been trying to bring new ideas and concepts that find a balance between development and our community engagement. And we seem to be, about a year ahead of where the legislature thinks we should be. And so last year, after a number of bills did pass that required us to begin to report on the amount of time it takes to issue various plans and the like, we elected to start going down a path to look at text amendments, code amendments that ultimately would become more efficient for the development community, as well as participate in a community engagement platform. And Paul had actually scheduled these items for the Planning and Zoning Commission last Thursday for their review. And we were going to brief the council this evening, but the governor signed into effect a bill that likely impacts a good portion, I won't say all, but a good portion of the work that we've been doing the last couple of years. And so I thought it would be wise for Paul to give the council a bit of an overview and perhaps even give a bit of explanation on the bill and what the bill says that ultimately will have the impact. But we're, at least at this point, as a staff, we feel that we need to spend more time analyzing the bill and ultimately looking at the interpretation of that bill before we bring these code amendments to you. And so with that, Paul, you want to pick up from there?
Sure, Larry. Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, members of council, so as Larry mentioned, I have been spending the last couple months drafting some amendments to your zoning code with the objective of achieving these purposes: enhancing public engagement and expanding public engagement, increasing efficiency and effectiveness of the development review process, to achieve a code that was concise, easily understood, and internally consistent, and to improve customer service. I think you all would agree that those are our objectives that we should be striving for. And I think the code amendments that I have drafted go a long ways in achieving many of these. And I'll talk about that to a certain degree. But as Larry mentioned, the new law that was signed by the governor last Monday, a week ago today, threw a bit of a wrench into some of the things that we were doing. These are the actual ordinances that have been drafted. We wrote a new chapter on the zoning code called Citizen Review Process. I am going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. We revised Chapter 1768. We basically rewrote the whole thing, which sets forth all of our administrative procedures and to kind of streamline to the degree possible. We revised our conditional use and tables and permitted use tables to try to push as much as we could down to the staff level, interestingly enough, and streamline that process. And I can talk about that just a little bit as well. But House Bill 2447, which takes effect at the end of this year, December 31st, is causing us to pause and reevaluate a couple aspects of our code amendment. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the law says, and then we're going to talk, I'll dive into a little bit greater detail on all these. So the first is that it says that requires rather than allows the legislative body of a city or town by ordinance to do the following. A, authorize administrative personnel to review and approve site plans, development plans, land divisions, lot line adjustments, lot ties, preliminary plats, final plats, and plat amendments without a public hearing. So that's the key, without a public hearing. So what that, on the face of it, seems to do is say that all of our major and minor site plans that we require prior to building new commercial buildings, new industrial buildings, new multifamily buildings, those major and minor site plans can no longer be required to go to Planning Commission for a public hearing. That's what it kind of sounds like on the face of it. Now, there are those who read this and say that no, it sort of keeps it optional still for communities to do that or not do it. The only change to this law was to change a may to a shall. The current law was in effect that gave us the right to do this if we wanted to, but the new law changed the may to a shall. So I think it makes it mandatory. Our city attorneys are looking into it and are going to try to, determine what this means and how it impacts our review process. But currently, our initial thinking is that all of our site plans, our major and minor site plans, have to be done administratively by staff and cannot be forwarded to Planning Commission for a public hearing. The follow-up question for that is, okay, so we get an administrative decision to approve or deny a site plan. Is that decision appealable or reviewable by Planning Commission, right? Because if it is, then that's an appeal hearing that is a public hearing, and is that allowed? Don't know the answer. We have to look into that. And of course, as you know, Planning Commission decisions on major site plans, the applicant, if they were denied by Planning Commission, could ask for a review of city council of that decision, and of course, that's a public hearing. So what happens to that appeal process as well as the initial review process? We don't know the answers. We're going to look into it and come back and regroup once we know those answers and modify the code to make sure it complies with whatever HB 2447 means. The interesting thing is one of the changes that we're making with our code change was to allow smaller commercial buildings and smaller multifamily buildings to be approved by staff without Planning Commission approval. The proposal was if you were building a new commercial building or a new industrial building of 16,000 square feet or smaller, you could go for administrative review. And you could build triplexes and fourplexes with administrative review. But the larger projects would have still required Planning Commission approval. Those smaller projects that we were trying to authorize staff to be able to review administratively, we also had appeal rights built in so that either the applicant or a surrounding property owner that was aggrieved by the administrative decision could appeal that decision to Planning Commission. But of course, we don't know if any of that is really allowed under HB 2447 now. So we're going to evaluate that. And it's kind of wide-ranging because you can see final plats here. I mean, we weren't to the point of modifying our subdivision code yet, and we were going to modify it to allow certain small subdivisions to be reviewed administratively. But this seems to say that all preliminary plats and all final plats, regardless of their size or how many lots, we can't send to, they can't send to Planning Commission or to Council. Have to do that administratively as well. So wide-ranging implications potentially. We're going to pause a little bit on that 1768 administrative procedures to better understand what the implications are. And as you'll see in a minute, the other code changes we had drafted with citizen review process and the changing of conditional uses and permitted uses all kind of tied in as a package with 1776. 17.68, the administrative procedures. So we're going to pause all those until we can figure this out, and it'll be brought back to you. The B is interesting. We shall authorize administrative personnel to review and approve design review plans based on objective standards without public hearing. In our process, we call those housing product. It's the housing design for new subdivisions. Interestingly enough, last year, we already made that code change. We already made those administrative, right? We beat the legislator to it, right? Allow at-risk submittals for on-site preliminary grading and drainage, work on infrastructure. We already do that. That's been our SOP for years, that we allowed at-risk grading plans. So, as Larry mentioned, our local processes, in many ways, we're already addressing, I think, many of these concerns that the legislature might have been hearing at a local level. But they've initiated some what appear to be broad brush solutions here. Then the last one is allow applicants with a history of compliance with building codes and regulations to be eligible for expedited permit review called self-certification. And actually, that is something we've been looking at as well for a little bit, and we're close to launching a pilot program on self-certification for certain types of building permits. So that's HB 2447, and that's why we can't this evening doesn't make sense for us to give you a full briefing on all the code amendments, but I do want to talk about certain portions of those amendments just to give you a feel for what we've been working on and get any feedback you might have on the direction we're taking. So the code amendment really started with creating this new chapter 17.66 citizen review process. And the objective of this new chapter of the zoning code was to enhance our public engagement process on development review, on development applications. Staff is of the belief that the time to engage the public in development review applications is early on, when we can sit down with the applicant and with any neighbors who have concerns and hash those out, understand them, and find design solutions that address those concerns. Interesting enough, we don't believe that public engagement is that productive at the public hearing process because, it's hard to negotiate solutions from the dais, right? It's much easier if we can do it internally when we have the applicant, we have the neighbors or the concerned citizens, and we can really dive into what the concerns are and the appropriate solutions. But this new chapter talks about increasing the use of neighborhood or community meetings on development applications. Those are typically at the pre-application stage, even before the application is submitted. We want to go reach out, talk to those who are potentially impacted, and understand what concerns they may have. Mailing notices to owners of surrounding properties, city website posting, site posting, newspaper notices, social media, email. We use all of those techniques to reach out to the public. More specifically, our public notice would still be optional at the pre-application stage. Because frankly, some developments, there's no concerns, right? There's just, maybe it's a greenfield site and there's nothing around it. But if it's an infill site, there's probably likely to be public concerns about that development, whether it's compatible or not, what's being proposed. But the zoning code text amendment allows the planning director and the planning staff to determine which pre-application projects need neighborhood notice, neighborhood meetings, et cetera. Internal review. This chapter makes internal review, public notice mandatory at that stage. Internal review is once the application is formally submitted by the applicant and it's been distributed to the various city staff for review and comment, at the same time, we would notify the public that we're reviewing that application and provide them information on the project and tell them how they can get more information if they desire on the project. Really just understand if there are neighborhood concerns and if our surrounding property owner concerns, and if there are, the planner then would facilitate meetings between the development applicant and the concerned citizens to talk about those issues and try to resolve the conflict, mitigate their concerns through design changes, all during the internal review stage. Before, we were going to move it to the public hearings, because as I mentioned, we'd like to resolve any issues that we can identify before we get to the public hearing. But under this change of 2447, it's a good thing we made this change, because that's now where we're going to be hearing all the public comment is at the internal review stage, right? If there's no public hearings, the opportunity for the public to comment and address their concerns is to staff, planning staff, during the internal review. And I'm confident the planning staff will do a good job in resolving those issues and addressing them to the degree possible. And most of our applicants are very willing to work with staff and with the neighbors to make changes to address their concerns. If we're still allowed to have public hearings, or for those applications that can have public hearings, for sure, which might be conditional use permits, zone changes, all of those can still have public hearings. Public notice, again, is mandatory, but hopefully any issues that might be associated with that application hopefully have been worked out to the degree possible internal review. But for those applications that are subject to public hearings, public notice will be done again. So public notice, formal public notice, mandatory at 2 stages, optional at the pre-app. We've also included the ability to, we've set 300 feet as the minimum distance for notification for adjoining property owners, but allows the planning director and the staff to increase that distance to a further distance, 500, 1,000 feet, whatever really is necessary for those projects that have the potential to have greater impact than on just the adjacent property owners. But it's discretionary, but the code specifically allows for the increase from the 300 feet distance to a greater distance. You might note that the state law is only 200 feet, so we're already doing more than the state law with 300, but we think in certain instances we should go up beyond that, where there's potential for additional adverse impact. We specified some some signage size, we use signs, for zoning, they should be bigger, 4x8, other applications 4x4. And I've been thinking about this the other day, is that if we're not gonna have public hearings, we probably need to put signs on these properties during the internal review stage. In addition to just sending notices, we should put a poster, a yellow sign, this project's under internal review for, a new apartment complex, a new commercial building, a new industrial building, whatever. But because those signs are pretty effective, they stand out, people stop and they read them. So we'll probably have to modify this chapter to talk about putting signs up at the internal review stage if it happens to be that we're not going to have public hearings. This is kind of our postcard, our notice, our notification postcard that we send to adjoining property owners, and it's evolved a little bit recently to become pretty effective, right? We now are able to embed, a little aerial, tells you where the site is. We can do the QR code that allows you to link to the plans that have been submitted, the elevation drawings, the site plan, whatever. Gives you information on the planner, their phone number, their email. And so we're trying to provide people with a notice that really gives them the information necessary to really try to understand what's being proposed, and the ability to reach out for additional information if they are so inclined. This will go out with every application that we receive if we enact this new chapter of the zoning code. Before I talk about next steps, I want to just talk for just a moment about some of the other changes that we were proposing. It's like the bottom bullet here, this chapter 1768, Administrative Procedures. One of the things we were trying to do was we were trying to identify those land uses that currently are conditional uses that need public hearings before a planning commission as well as a major site plan, and allow them just to be processed with a major site plan or a minor site plan, depending how big they are. A couple examples of things that we thought no longer needed conditional uses where we have this use called convenience food restaurant. That's a conditional use. Now, most of you hear convenience food restaurant, they define it as it's a restaurant where you're not necessarily having sit-down service with table wait staff, but you're going to the counter, you're ordering food, and you're either eating it in the restaurant or you're leaving. Historically, those were kind of fast food restaurants with drive-throughs, right? Which can have adverse impact, and so they should be conditional uses. But there was a whole new type of restaurant called quick serve restaurants that have evolved where there's no drive-throughs, but they still have, you go to the front counter and you order, and you can eat inside, you can take it out, and they have no adverse impact. Good examples are Chipotle, Subway, Stone Cold Creamery. All of those were requiring conditional use permits. But there's really no reason for it, right? They don't have adverse impact. So one of the code changes was to push those convenience food restaurants without drive-throughs to be eligible for administrative review depending on the size of the restaurant. Some other ones were we expanded the zone districts in which bowling alleys can be constructed. We allowed for conference centers uses like the property to be allowed in industrial zones as our I-1 zone as a conditional use. So we looked at things in our zoning code that really we weren't addressing well and tried to refine it in a way that made it easier. In every case, it made it easier, never made it harder. We did add uses that we are getting in the community today, but we don't address well or at least address specifically in the zoning code, data centers. So we highlighted the zones that data centers were allowed in, and also battery storage facilities. are kind of new uses that our zoning code did not have any provisions for. So we're refining the permitted uses and conditional uses to streamline as much as possible. So for next steps, staff and specifically the city attorney will be doing some review and advising us on what we need to, changes we need to make to comply with HB 2447. And then we'll modify 1768 administrative procedures to implement those recommendations. We'll bundle it up back and we'll take it to planning commission for a formal public hearing and recommendation, and then back to council. Be happy to answer questions you have about that.
Well, thank you, Paul, especially for all that hard work and then to get to this point. And you're leaving. This is like the way to leave the city, right, after all that work. So, okay, Bob, did you have a question?
Yeah. Paul, I guess all about HB 2447. Did we see this coming? Has there been some discussion in the legislature or from the governor? Because it seems like it's anti-public involvement. And also, have you been able to discover or realize what the motivation is behind this? Are they trying to help the developer to come in, check the boxes, and proceed, or?
Well, Councilmember Huddleston, I think the politics around this are pretty complex. I did see that the Arizona League of Cities and Towns supported the legislation. There were certain cities in Arizona that supported the legislation. I'm not sure all the reasons why they did. I don't know if the city manager has any other comments he might make to that.
Well, I would just build on Mr. Tice's feedback, and I agree that there certainly was some support by various municipal entities on this particular bill, and I think that just given the number of bills that have been introduced the last several years, and attempting to, and you're absolutely right, Councilmember Huddleston, it really is to try to streamline the process. There is particularly for development, there is this perception that local government will stand between these developments for a variety of reasons. And I think that this bill ultimately became one that many municipalities felt like they could tolerate versus having to fight the fight and ultimately defending additional loss of control. And so it was a bit of a middle ground bill, if you will. And as you heard tonight from Mr. Tice, there's a number of these elements that we were already practicing in Casa Grande and some that we were heading towards. I think our primary pause was the fact that the broad spectrum of project types that ultimately could progress without any type of public involvement and public hearings specifically. And so yes, there have been as many housing bills considered these last couple of years as there have been water bills, and so there's just a lot of movement on this front to try to improve the efficiency timeline of municipal government. And from our perspective, we continue to take the stance that we believe that ought to happen at a local level, that we should not subordinate local control, that we have to find the balance between development and our community needs.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, Matt?
So I don't know how far we can get on HB 2447, but what I'm reading, you can do it without a public hearing, but can you have a public hearing? Does it specifically
That's what we don't know.
That's a good
prevent
question.
us from having a public hearing?
Well, and we can go into more detail, but, the specific language, right, prior to 2447, this is what Director Tice was talking about, was it allowed us to do that,
Right.
right? And so we were looking at doing that for certain items, but certainly not for all of them. Now it says you shall authorize the administrative personnel to do this without a public hearing. So I think they're pretty clear in terms of
We can
what
still
they-
authorize them
what
to
they
do that, but we can
Yeah,
still have a
but
public
you
hearing.
have to tell them they can do it without a public hearing. So
Yeah.
if you do a public hearing, you will be violating the statute.
Okay.
Right.
So But that's also why the revisions to 1766 that Director Tice talked about are important, because while we may not be able to have a public hearing to approve them, it doesn't mean we have to do it without public input. And so that's the proactive things that, Paul has been working on, will help us in that, to ensure that we continue to get public input, even on those things that we do. And like Director Tice said, we're also looking at how this bill is going to be sort of implemented. We're going to talk about it from a city attorney standpoint and otherwise, to talk about potential appeals, right? Maybe it won't be a public hearing, but nonetheless have public input at appeals. So we are going to continue to look at ways to ensure that the public has knowledge of the development things and input into our development processes. That's going to be the critical piece, whether that's a public hearing or whether it's beginning with neighborhood meetings, which is always a great way to start, right? Talking to the people in the neighborhood, because that's how word gets out. Not just the people within 300 feet, but the people that talk to their neighbors. So that's still going to be a big part of what we do here in the city.
Because this doesn't usurp the local control as much as other bills that have been proposed over the last several years have. So I'm sure that's why it garnered more support from some municipalities. But, we've made a lot of changes proactively, Paul, to your credit. And we get developer after developer up here. And I know they're trying to get their projects through, but they say how nice it has been to work with the city of Casa Grande's department. So I know you're on your final tour, but thank you. Because, and you brought up in the first slide, is customer service, because here in your department, you don't make anything or sell anything except for permits. You can't put them on sale. I mean, they are a certain price, so you have to provide customer service, and that's the biggest part of it. And I think you've done a good job of improving that over the last several years, and will continue to. And now with our, with our increasing the distance, I always thought that was a good one, because 100 feet a lot of times it just gets across the road, right? Not really anybody. But now we have new tools like our city program, the 411, and then the new GIS. We can put alerts on there to say, hey, there's something happening here, so you might want to, here's a click on this to submit your input, or however we're going to do that. But it's a good opportunity to use that technology to help our citizens, because there's been a lot of projects that have been made better because of public involvement, for sure, because you don't think of all the angles all the time. So it's good. But again, thank you, Paul, for your hard work, and you were always doing it, even the stuff that is people don't see a lot, the minutia of changing all these codes, which I think you enjoy because that's your vocation. But a lot of us would just be like, man, let it go. So, but it's made it a lot better, as a city and for our citizens. So thank you for that, and good luck going forward. Thanks.
Questions, comments? No, and I just wanted to piggyback on that the public input is important. So I was going to ask the same, how can we get around it? Not so much get around it, not get around, but, just make sure that we are doing whatever we can for that input. And so it's probably going to find new ways of communicating to the public on when they should get involved and how they can get involved. It's just a new way of doing it versus the public hearing, because it is so important. And you were really pushing that, and so we just have to keep it going as much as we can, Brett, when you review it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me. I don't understand how some cities would approve, but I guess they do. Politics. But no, and thank you for doing this. I know when Larry said that you were going to review it, and then all of a sudden there was like a halt, and it's like, whoa, wait. So we appreciate all that. But hopefully, we'll still be able to use many of that, those changes that you have here for us. So thank you for everything. Okay, any other questions, comments?
Good, thank you.
Okay, on to the next one. You're the next one, right?
Yeah.
You're not leaving yet.
Yes, no.
Madam Mayor, it's Mr. Tice's final presentation.
Shouldn't we have a cake?
He is coming back at the next meeting to be recognized.
Okay.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. So, I do want to take a few moments to talk about the Florence Boulevard Corridor Design Concept Report, or DCR. I want to start by just refresh you memory that the design concept report has 3 segments. Starting at the east, we have the freeway, which is about a mile long. We have the longest stretch, which is our midtown. Measured that the other day, came up to be 2.75 miles. And then our downtown shortest segment, which is about 3/4 of a mile. So we have three segments. Each has a little bit of a different design concept, as you've been briefed before, and I'm sure you are aware. The DCR was considered by the Planning Commission at their March 6th meeting. They held a full public hearing on the DCR, and I think it's fair to say that the majority of the public comments were generally supportive of the DCR, but indicated that the downtown segment should include the 5-lane configuration and not the 3-lane option. Of course, we had 2 options in there. Accordingly, staff is recommending that the 3-lane configuration option be dropped from the DCR, and that we work within the right-of-way constraints that we have in the downtown segment to do as much enhancement of that street area as we can with the given right-of-way. Planning Commission did unanimously vote to recommend council approve the DCR, but they imposed a change that they recommended that the downtown segment be classified as the first phase of the project versus the freeway segment, which staff was recommending. So, as I've been thinking about that, and, I understand why the Planning Commission recommended the downtown segment be the first phase against the staff recommendation, and there clearly are pros and cons to both approaches, to starting on either end, the west end or the east end. So I thought I might just discuss with you this evening a few of the thoughts that I had on the pros and cons for each. The downtown phase at 3/4 of a mile is the shortest segment and thus could be completed in less time. Since there's no median or no travel nor bike lane construction is involved with the downtown segment, the cost will be lower than the other segments on a per linear foot basis, if you will, whatever measurement you want to make. Completion of the downtown phase will have a positive impact on the impression the public has of the downtown area. I think there was a lot of discussion at the Planning Commission about wanting to enhance the downtown area and the positive impact that they thought that the DCR would have on the general downtown area. Due to the relatively small lot sizes and number of businesses, the construction activity within the right-of-way would likely have more short-term adverse impact. I mean, while construction is happening, because of the small lot sizes, there will be disruption. It will be minimized, of course, to the degree possible, but it will occur. You can see here, this is some of the encroachments that we might have in the downtown area. And so with the 5-lane configuration, we can make the 5-lane configuration look significantly better than it does today. I mean, there will be a very positive impact on the image and character of the downtown, even keeping the 5 lanes. It will continue to have 4 through lanes with a continuous enhanced left turn center lane, expanded sidewalk and other pedestrian scale enhancements to the degree possible. Due to the right-of-way constraints, a bike lane will not be included. Sidewalk widening, landscaping, and artwork will be introduced to the extent possible, though. And of course, the downtown entryway sign will be a big part of that downtown segment. To remind you, even when we were recommending that the freeway segment be done as the first phase, we were also recommending that this downtown entryway sign be part of the first phase, regardless of which phase the other streetscape improvements we're going to start at.
Paul, is this slide what is now Erdman Plaza?
It is.
Okay.
So, some pros and cons for making the freeway phase first. At 1 mile, it's 25%, slightly longer than the downtown segment. Will take a little bit more time to complete. If an additional travel lane is added in each direction, which is what the proposal is, to take it from 4 to 6 lanes, along with wider sidewalks and bike lanes, the cost will be significantly higher on a per linear foot basis than the downtown segment. Due to the relatively large lot sizes, many of which are still vacant, the construction activity within the right-of-way would likely have less impact. We're building adjacent to vacant lots, vacant sites, less impact on any businesses. Completion of this phase will have a positive impact on the impression the public has of the city as they enter off the interstate. And the design elements and theme of the DCR can be incorporated into the frontage of the vacant lots as they develop. So we have a number of vacant lots, large ones, that will likely develop within the next, we'll say, 5 years. And as they develop, they can reflect some of the design character and theme of the DCR and reflect it along their frontages and their landscaping and highway improvements. So if you remember, this is designed, proposed to be increased from 4 to 6 travel lanes with a median and turn lanes. Wide sidewalks and a separate bike lane is also proposed for this segment. It also includes a welcoming sign for visitors as they come off the interstate, welcoming them to Casa Grande. So, as you can see, it's a mixed bag, right? There's pros and cons for both. You can make the argument either way. So at this point, staff is recommending that the final decision on phasing be delayed until additional analysis can be completed on the right-of-way and construction constraints for both of those downtown and freeway segments. And the matter would be brought back to council for a final decision on the phasing once that additional information is available. So for next steps, we would ask the consultants to revise the DCR as it's currently authored, to remove the 3-lane option and those designs that are associated with that. We would engage further in doing further analysis of the right-of-way and construction constraints for both the downtown and freeway segments. We'd come back to council for final adoption and consideration of the DCR. And then if it was approved, we'd move into creation of what we'll call civil plans, the design and construction plans. And I said, it's a typo, excuse me, it says for the downtown phase, it'd be for either phase, downtown or freeway, whichever one was selected. And it's part of that civil design process, regardless of which phase we start on, that will involve additional stakeholder engagement with residences, businesses, and property owners to really talk about the specific design and work through the details, right, on how the design will be done, how it impacts their property, if at all. And as part of that, we would be considering CIP funding for whichever phase that is selected. So, Larry, did you want to add anything to any of that?
I'll add at the end.
Okay. So that's a wrap for me. So I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments.
What a way to end here. And especially with this report here. So any questions, comments? Sure, Anthony.
Thanks again, Mr. Tice. We appreciate you and all the work you do. appreciate you the modification of the DCR to just remove the 3-lane. Appreciate that. Would there be an issue with working on the signage before the construction even started? Would that be an issue, or would we need to go ahead and get the streets in so we know where the signs need to be? You know what I'm saying? Because I just thought about, you know.
Good idea.
Well, I'm bringing it up because I know that we've talked about this before, and I know we talked about starting I-10 in, and I know the signs needs to be done.
Yep.
The signs look great. Even the intersections look great too. And regardless of where we start, I believe there's just going to be a little traffic because we're working on the roads, and so you're still going to get some traffic there. But in regards to the signs, are we able to do the signs before the roads?
Councilmember Edwards, I think that that would be feasible for the downtown sign because you're not really going to move the curb line.
Right.
But on the freeway, the curb line is likely to move. And so you really need to get the civil drawings down to understand where the curb's moving to. So, because you don't want to impact the sign with the road project, right? But for the downtown, since, the road is basically set, I think the downtown sign could precede the road construction, any other enhancements. It could probably be, phase 1A, yeah, if you wanted to, yeah.
Right, and I'm bringing it up, that's kind of loaded. Once again, I would prefer out I-10, working its way in. We can still work on that sign at the 5 Point, get that beautiful sign up there, get that started, put our new sign in, because remember now, that, to me, when they're driving in, whether it's on Pinell, whether it's on Florence Boulevard, that we get that signs in place, okay? And so that's why I would prefer, this is Anthony, that we start I-10, work Florence Boulevard, working on the road, put the sign in over here at the 5 Point first. But that's just Anthony throwing something out.
It's technically feasible, I'll tell you.
Thank you, Anthony. Anyone else? Matt?
Yeah, so I want everybody to know we're going to be talking about this a lot before we do actually do anything more with a lot more public input. But my friend here, I like doing the freeway side because that's going to spur development down there too. They see us investing in our community, people start investing, building stuff there to get us more money to fund the rest of the project, hopefully, is my plan. And the downtown, that'll come and we'll definitely invest more and more money down there as we have over the past several years. I do want to advocate for bike lanes though, because people say no one rides their bikes down there. Well, they never will if there's no bike lanes. But anyway, so I know it's hard, but anyway, I like that. But anyway, thank you, Paul, for working so hard on this, and the guys from J2, and everybody's got citizen input a lot on it. I appreciate the letters and the input and people here. And just remember, we're not making a decision tonight.
Right.
We will be talking about this a lot to make sure we do it right, because it's such a big project. It's very important for our city, the vision of our city, and the look of our city too, like the entryway, announce the arrival when you arrive to our city. So just be watching for more input on this from everybody. So thank you. And thanks for making it go smoothly with that change down there. So thanks, Paul.
Paul, I want to wholeheartedly thank anybody and everybody that played a part in dropping the 3-lane option. We have heard about that over and over and over again, and it was clear that the majority of our community did not want that. And so I'm glad it's off the table. The other thing is I would, for me, and this is just Bob, like Anthony said his, I would like to keep the freeway portion a priority for all of the reasons that Anthony and Matt said. But I would like to add that on any traffic process with work on the roads, I think safety and the efficient flow of traffic needs to be our priorities. And the downtown area is primarily aesthetics. I mean, I think it's good what we're seeing, and I think it'll play well with the citizens. But I do think that section coming off the freeway should be our priority, because it's just gonna, there's gonna be more and more traffic up there, more and more development, and I think we owe it to our community to focus on that, and that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
I'll just kind of throw in my 2 cents on the freeway versus downtown as well. Cost of construction, so as it continues to escalate year over year, when you look at, say, the freeway end is a $30 million price tag. If it goes up by 10%, that's a $3 million hit to the city. Whereas if the downtown goes up by 10%, it's only a $1 million impact to the city. So I would just suggest that we wait to get further analysis, but keep that in mind, is that the escalation of the cost of construction is going to be a harder impact at the freeway end than it is going to be in the downtown end.
Good point.
But wait till we see the final analysis, but
Yeah.
keep that in mind, that the cost of construction continues to increase.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm on board with the rest of the council members on this. This is exactly, everything they said is exactly what I agree with. No need to reiterate it. But thank you so much. East side first.
Thank you, Sean. No, Paul, and again, thank you, and to all the consulting, all of the public engagement. You know, we talk about public engagement, and, you know, when this came to us just, a couple weeks ago, we, at that point, we knew we were just approving the design concept report. There was nothing that we weren't approving, anything, you know, it was just those 2 options in there. But we heard from the public again, and we heard loud and clear how people felt. And so we, instead of creating, you know, the tension and the stress and, you know, anxiety of this happening overnight, I think this is the right thing to do as far as taking out that one option. Again, you know, I personally wanted to just see the whole report, you know, approved, and then as we move forward, found out what the best way to go. But we heard the public loud and clear. There are people that really supported, you know, narrowing down that 3-lane. And so we, again, appreciate your input and your support, but know that all of whatever, even, you know, keeping the 5 lanes is going to, and all the improvements, is still going to add value and beautification and bring a lot, you know, to the community. So I'm excited for the whole project, and, you know, as far as deciding which end to start, you know, I'm with all of you. I thought, you know, that's why we all thought at that point, starting on the freeway side was the best way. But I understand, I listened to the planning and zoning comments and understood, you know, they're concerned that if it's going to take so long to get this end, that it's not going to happen downtown. So, but I think as we can continue with further analysis and find out what the future funding is, we don't know. This could be 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. And so if it's going to take, you know, 10 years to get to, you know, half of the freeway, you know, aside, then maybe we do consider the downtown. So I think that analysis is going to be important on where we move forward. So, but, you know, we at least have this design, you know, concept report. You know, you say we'll approve it for future funding and, you know, later. So we can definitely do that. But I just wanted to really thank everyone who put so much time into this. Paul, I know you were trying to get you know, we were hoping to have this done before you left, and we kind of did, right? I mean, so, and again, to all of the consultants, public, staff, time and energy, you know, and the community for providing that input. So we know we're kind of leaving it open at this time, that we're not making a decision at this time, and we'll just continue to, you know, further analysis and find out what funding is available and move forward from there. So again, thank you for everyone. Anything else, Larry? No?
Nothing really more material. We, as staff, we're certainly hearing the feedback from the mayor and council this evening, and I do agree that while we will move the DCR for very likely without a starting position due to the additional analysis on the right-of-way and the financial costs, I think I'm not sure that as a community we have recognized that this is a long-term plan. This is not something that's going to be done in the next 2 years or 5 years, very likely. And so appreciate the feedback we've received this evening. We will be making the modifications to the DCR, bringing that back for your acceptance, and then ultimately we'll continue the analysis, because I do think that those elements that have been brought up tonight will help council better understand the east side costs and timeline versus the downtown. But I do want to point out to Councilman Edwards' comment about the sign, and I agree with Paul. I think it's something that we may be able to do in the downtown area. We do have money budgeted this fiscal year to potentially accelerate that project. So there may be a scenario where we're taking various components, particularly in the downtown, ahead of us really having a primary focus there. So I just wanted to make that point.
Good. Okay, anything else? Okay, with that, Paul, thank you. Your last presentation. We wish you all the best. We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the study session. And we'll resume in 12 minutes, 13 minutes. You're just kind of sad Paul's leaving. Yeah. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Want to call this, the meeting to order. We'll go ahead and start with the invocation. And then after the invocation, if you want to please stand if you're willing and able, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide our council members as they meet and discuss matters with regard to our city. I pray they shall choose to do that which is moral and rational. I pray that their motivation in everything they want to do is the good of the public and not their own. I pray that they will be able to solve our city's problems and make good policies that address them. Help them to be competent and excellent in their governance. Most of all, I pray that anyone present who does not know your Son Jesus will get to encounter him, surrender their lives to him, and live a life that glorifies you, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to the Salvation Army and Faith Alliance, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Herman. So we'll go ahead and start with the roll call and welcome Adriana, your first meeting. We're happy to have you here. So if you can please accept for the record that all of the council are here.
So noted.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start with the minutes.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, I move to approve the minutes for the City Council regular meeting of March 17th, 2025, and accept for the record the minutes of the Police Personnel Retirement Board meeting, March 4th, 25, the Arts and Culture Commission meeting, March 4th, 25, the minutes for the Board of Adjustment of January 14th, 2025, the minutes of the Historic Preservation Commission of January 27th, 2025, and accept for the record the minutes for the Community Service Advisory Board of February 27th, 2025, as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so all of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next are the claims.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, I move that we approve the list of claims from March 21st through April the 1st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The meeting agenda approval, any changes to the agenda at all?
Madam Mayor, we have no changes this evening.
Okay, any changes here?
No.
Okay, so if we can get an approval for a motion for the approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, no special presentations. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Is there anything that the council would like to pull from the agenda? Consent, staff, or the public? Okay.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, I would move for acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? So if we can get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Romo?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bedellin?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman?
Yes.
Mayor Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, where are we here? Okay, public comments. I do have a few speaker cards. I'll go ahead and start with those, and if you can just make sure if you come up and speak, if you can state your name and your address, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes if you can. I first have, is it Carl Clampett? Carl.
I am Carl Connolly Clampett, residing at 594 West Racine Loop, SK Ranch, Casa Grande. Mayor and council members, I want to thank you for and the planning zoning members for removing that plan to narrow Florence Boulevard. No matter if it was your own realization that this concept was a bad idea, or it was us, we citizens of Casa Grande, through our voices here at these meetings, or writing on CG Chat or Nextdoor, that made you make this decision, again, thank you for removing it from the concept plan. As for the rest of the conceptual plans for Florence Boulevard, I think they are also bad ideas. The Welcome to Casa Grande monument at or near the I-10 has merit, but the rest of the plan is flawed. Non-residents of Casa Grande getting off the I-10 at Florence are probably looking for gas, a snack, or lodging. Knowing where they are is nice, but I don't think that they are going to be awed by the seldom used wide sidewalks, bike lanes, stamped and painted CG logos at our intersections. We don't need benches for our unhoused population to relax on, or artwork or lots of trees to be watered and trimmed, installed by us either. Existing and future businesses can do their part by making their establishments and surroundings more attractive to the newcomer passing by. The city's job is to give us safe and ample access and egress and to and from those businesses, not to make the boulevard pretty. Concept planners expect the construction to take over 10 years to complete. I will shop well elsewhere if I have to avoid construction areas for 10 years, and so many of those existing businesses may go out. We also have no idea on the estimated cost I and the rest of us will have to pay. Please, if you feel you need to spend the money, widen or complete widening of some of our major thoroughfares. Spend money to attract more restaurants and stores that we need. People are attracted to Casa Grande because it's more affordable than Chandler, Mesa, or Phoenix, not because we have a pretty main street. Casa Grande has attracted businesses to our west side, offering new jobs. Solicit more of them to join us. That may help us fill the glut of rental units that we have overbuilt. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, I have Peter Encinas.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. My name is Peter Encinas. I reside at 1070 West Falls Canyon Drive here in Casa Grande, 85122. I'm with a ministry called Minutes with God Community Network. We're a nonprofit group of local Christian rappers spreading the gospel through alternative music, rap and hip hop, reaching the youth and the young adults. And we've partnered up with the Texas Roadhouse. We're having an event out there May 17th. So next month on the 17th, it's like a car show. It's a fundraiser event. And we would love to invite, one or more of you council to come out there and bless us with your time. It's a twofold invitation. We'd love to have you guys out there and bless us, spiritually with a prayer, the word of God, maybe a little message if you guys could. And also on the natural side, you guys as leaders of this community, of this city, it would just be a joy to have you guys out there and show us your support for this ministry we do. We're local here, and we're now reaching out to Tucson and Phoenix. We're getting calls to go into California where the wildfires were at, even New Mexico and the reservations, the Navajo Nation. So this is a fundraiser. We're trying to raise the funds to get these groups out there. We need that money to go out there. And while you're there, if you guys do make it, they're blessing us there with some baskets at Texas Roadhouse to raffle off and raise these funds. And you're welcome to just come through and you can drop a check in the box too if you want. We take cash, check. Got some gold coins, silver, whatever's going to get us there to reach these lost souls. At the end of the day, it's anybody. One, wherever we got to go get that one lost soul, leave the 99 for the one. That's what we do, and we're here in Casa Grande to serve. This is our base, and we love it. With that being said, on the second note is that I was here for the study session in regards to the less fortunate and the homeless in the parks. And I know we're talking about getting some new ordinances and whatnot. So our ministry is the one that's out there giving them food and giving them water. And so we kind of made a relationship with them. So we love to lock arms with you guys and partner up whenever these ordinances are created. And let us go out there, before you guys or with you guys and minister the word of God with love. And then kind of tell them, well, here's the word of God and here's the word of the city. You got to get moving. Can't hang down here, you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been here long enough. So we would love to partner with you guys and go out there and serve the community, serve the city in that way, not just the Lord, but we'd love to do that with you guys. So I'll be here after if you guys want to get any more information on that stuff and join us, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor Fitzgibbons, Mayor Pro Tem Herman, members of the council. My name is Mike Cruz, Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy for Lucid Motors. I'm here in official capacity today to recognize and take the time to honor a good partner of ours, a good friend, and a great employee of this wonderful city, and that's Mr. Paul Tice, as he gets ready to embark on his retirement. I'm sure you guys are going to do a wide array of different activities to honor him, and I just wanted to make sure I'm here and present to be able to do so because at the next meeting I'll be traveling. So I do want to say on behalf of Lucid Motors, Paul, thank you very much for your service to Casa Grande. I don't say this lightly. I say this because it's something I experience every day. I have the opportunity to travel this country and be able to work with cities of all sizes where we do businesses across the states, whether it's a service center, studio, facility, headquarters. I interact with tons of cities, different councils, different mayors, and every single time I am out there, I'm reminded how amazing this city is. From the staff to the leadership to all the electeds, something is special about Casa Grande that needs to be recognized because of the work and the commitment to deliver not just a quality customer service to us as a business, but for the work to uplift the voice of the people. Paul, we put you through a lot. We probably ran you to retirement with all the work we do at Lucid Motors and the continuous building. But on behalf of the Lucid family, we sincerely thank you for your service, always being accessible, working with us to identify pathways and solutions as opposed to barriers and obstacles. You've done an immense job to help us to get to where we're at and the phase of development we're at, and it couldn't have been done without Mr. Tice and his team. So, Paul, thank you for your service. We wish you the best in retirement, and we wish you all as you move forward, and just understand that the work you've done here will continue on. This facility and the work we're doing is a legacy project that will continue to benefit not just the residents of this community, but in the background, it's always people like you who help make this possible. So Mayor and Council, I would be remiss not to say that the work, the employees, the family you have here are incredible. Very lucky to be here and blessed to be able to be part of this organization, but also to call Casa Grande my home. And on a personal note, Paul, it's been a pleasure working with you in a personal capacity. Was when I was vice chair on the Board of Adjustments. You were always very professional, courteous, and always willing to work with us and guide us as we navigated the city's business. So thank you, Paul. Thank you for the team, for all the work you do, and continuing to serve and represent not just the voice of the people, but industry and businesses across this great community that deliver quality jobs and opportunities for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Oh, are we clapping? Thank you, Mike. Anyone else that would like to address the council? Did you guys want to?
Wow, what a follow-up, and I will say that so far I've experienced the same thing with the people that I have interacted with here at the...
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yep. It's Robin Johnston Deem, and I'm out of Colorado, so it's 7380 East 8th Avenue in Colorado, Denver. So thank you, council members, for letting me speak today. I am the Government City Affairs Manager for Metronet Fiber Optics, where we have over 300 communities that we provide 100% fiber. We are investing $26 million into the Casa Grande community to bring fiber to the area. We are recognized and ranked by industry leaders and such as Netflix, PCMac, gaming companies, and also with Reader's Choice Award. An independent study found that fiber increases the home values by up to 14%. So, but unfortunately, there is a downside to that, and that's the construction process. So I'm here to educate people on what Metronet does. First of all, we just met with MAC earlier today to discuss what's going to work best for the residents. But in general, about 30 to 45 days before we enter an area, we'll send out a little letter, and then 7 to 14 days prior to that, we send out a little construction postcard. And this is one thing we might go ahead and change or adjust it into certain areas, because we usually put out little yard darts that go into all the lawns. But sometimes that's a nuisance and they blow away, people don't see them. So what Mr. Mac had suggested is that we put construction signs into each of the big areas. So it'd be like a big warning sign, and it would say who we are and how they can contact us. So finally, we also have some door hangers, but again, sometimes those can be a nuisance. They blow around, people don't see them. So again, we're going to work and address that individual subdivisions moving forward. We do rank 30% higher in our customer service compared to our competitors, and I believe that's because we have a construction-based website where residents can reach out to us. We try to be extremely transparent. And one of the things that we really highlight is that funneling people into our construction website where they can learn about easements, there's videos, there's FAQs that they can pull up just to learn our process. And probably one of the biggest and most important things where they can access us is there's a huge yellow button that says ask a question. Residents can go on there and they can put in their information and they can tell us who they are and what their question is. So if Susie has a sprinkler system she wants us to know, that is a boots on the ground one-way, two-way communication to our teams. So they can let us know, we'll come out and address, okay, where is your sprinkler system? They may have a furry pet in the backyard, so we can address each residence to alleviate those concerns. Additionally, restoration is huge, so that when residents put in their information, they will have a ticket, it's formatted, and they have a direct line to us. So I'm going to stay after if anybody has questions, concerns. I'm going to pass out my business card, share our customer service number, anything people may need to move forward if they have any issues with construction process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comments. So we are on I-1.
Hey, Mayor, City Council, staff recommends the mayor and City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Hensel Phelps Construction Company of Phoenix with a total bid of $4,199,000. Staff is requesting an additional contingency of $504,000. This contract will provide construction services for the Courtson West Regional Sewer Lift Station, which is part of the Courtson Force Main project. City of Casa Grande needs additional wastewater collection infrastructure to support the commercial, industrial, and residential developments planned for the west side of the city. This project is for a new lift station to collect and pump wastewater from the west side of the city to the existing water reclamation facility. Hensel Phelps was determined to be the lowest qualified bidder after bid reviews. With that, what are your questions?
Any questions? Comments? So Dwayne, what is the timeline once this is approved? What is the timeline for this?
I'm going to let Mac answer that.
Okay.
Mayor and council, we're still kind of working out that official timeline. Our big concern is we're looking at about a 500-day timeline. That's very non-typical for a lift station. Usually a lift station is a 9 to a 12-month process. There's some big challenges in the supply chain related to electrical equipment, specifically backup generators, which are required per Arizona law on those lift stations. And so we're working on trying to make sure that we can get those as soon as possible. And for that reason, we're looking at probably a 500-day timeline. That being said, we could potentially have the lift station up and running with rental generators if needed sooner than that date. Obviously, that would just have additional cost impacts to the project, and that's why we're kind of asking for that additional contingency should that need arise. We don't anticipate it, but we're trying to plan for the worst case scenario, if you will.
Right, okay. Thank you. Okay. No other questions?
I guess
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to continue on with that one then, because I did see on one of the addendums that it went up to 353 days. So you're saying now the 500-day is due to the lead time on the backup generators?
Correct. Yes, correct. We would be able.
So we're still looking at having installation and everything else complete within the first 353 backup generators, potentially rentals until 500 days once we get the final install.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, so, oh, sure.
I would like to add, we don't anticipate needing it that soon. We looked at some of the potential needs for developers in that area. We're pretty confident we're not going to need to do rental generation, but we wanted to make sure that was an option if we needed to.
Okay, but we wouldn't delay the completion of the lift station itself. We'd finish all the construction, just be waiting for the backup generators.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll go ahead, Adriana, if we can get a resolution number, please.
Resolution number 5761, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from the Hensel Phelps Construction Company for the construction of a wastewater lift station, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing the transfer of budget authority, and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, I move that we approve resolution number 5761 as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so if we can go ahead and get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Romo?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Dillon?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman?
Yes.
Mayor Fitzgibbon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So item I2, back to you two.
Excuse me. Staff recommends the mayor and city council approve an intergovernmental agreement to allow ADOT to administer a roundabout project at the intersection of Florence Street and Ash Avenue. Due to the increasing traffic related to new manufacturing jobs in Casa Grande, the need for safety and traffic improvements have been identified at the existing intersection of Florence Street and Ash Avenue. For this reason, this project qualified for federal funds. The proposed roadway improvement includes the construction of a roundabout, including curb ramps, crosswalks, and sidewalks at Florence Street and Ash Avenue. This project would create an attractive entry point into the city, improve traffic circulation, and address safety concerns. With that, what are your questions?
Any questions? Well, go ahead, Matt.
I got a couple. Number one, this has to go through ADOT. Is that due to the fact of it being a federally directed spending?
Right. For construction with federal funds, we have to have ADOT administer it. Sometimes we can do the design, but for sure, if it's construction, ADOT has to administer it.
So they handle all that end of it there. And then the other question is roundabout versus stoplight. Maybe talk about that in that area and pros and cons.
Sure, there's a number of reasons why roundabouts in certain situations are better than a traffic signal. There's roundabouts have proved to be safer than traffic signals. You know, you don't have the head-on collisions, the right-angle collisions. So the crashes in a roundabout are a lot less severe than an intersection. There's the other cost of maintenance. The maintenance costs for a signal outweigh the cost of maintenance for the roundabout long-term.
All right. And can we put a big piece of art in the middle or something?
I was thinking of a statue of myself. And
Okay. We'll see what we can do. Thank you, Dwayne.
Okay, go ahead.
So total estimated cost was $3.5 million, plus or minus?
Yes.
And we're responsible for the design, correct?
Yes, it's
So is-
100% designed already.
It is, so we've already gone through that, it's all
Yes.
paid, all good, okay. That's all I had.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So Adriana, if we can get a resolution number, please.
Resolution number 5763, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, authorizing the intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Casa Grande to administer a roundabout project, authorizing the expenditures of public funds, and authorizing the execution of an agreement by the city manager.
Mayor Stevens, I move that we approve resolution number 5763 as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, if we can get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Romo?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Breedlove?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman?
Yes.
Mayor Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Okay, that's it then. So we'll just go ahead with reports. Anyone would like to, how about Becca, if we start with you?
Sure, I just wanted to say that we had a career day at Cactus Middle School, and the city was very well represented. We had fire, police, public works, and community service, as well as Councilman Edwards, whose hand was sore by the time he was done because he was signing so many different things. So we really appreciate that. The kids loved it. It was a great event. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it was a busy week. So we had dinner with the CAP board of directors. It's a good dinner, bad information, but it was good. I mean, there are positives there. I mean, they are truly working with the upper basin states to try and get us what we deserve out of the agreements that are in place. So that was good. Cesar Chavez dinner was great. Huge turnout for that. I was really impressed with the number of people that were there and supporting that organization, and the number of scholarships that were passed out was just phenomenal. That was great to see. And then I also got a chance to go to the Public Safety Day, Public Safety Night. It was kind of misnomered. Pretty good turnout. Really impressed with the number of agencies that were there. Border Patrol showed up with their horses. Eloy Fire and Police were out there. Pinal County Sheriffs. All of our local groups, but it was a good turnout. And I tell you what, if you ever get a chance to go watch the K9s perform, those dogs and those handlers are outstanding, amazing, amazing creatures. That was it.
They didn't put you out there?
No, thankfully, no, not after I was thinking about it, but then after I saw the first guy get hit, I'm good. I don't need that.
All right. Okay. How about you, Bob?
No report, Mayor.
Okay. How about you, Sean?
I'm going to leave it to Matt. I was going to say about the Taco Fest, but that's up to Matt. But besides that, attended a few golf tournaments and stuff like that, and had a St. Anthony's golf tournament, and great turnout there. And Taco Fest, I'm going to leave it to Matt. That was a great.
It was great.
Great deal. So.
I'm gonna leave that to Matt.
Yeah.
That and Denim and Diamonds.
Denim and Diamonds, yes.
And Cesar Chavez, of course, it was wonderful. And the 65 students that received the scholarships, the recipients. This week we have the International Drive-Through Prayer that's going on, started today. And our mayor did the welcome. And so that will be going on the 7th through the 9th. And so it'll end on the 9th at 12 noon, and it's at Trinity Southern Baptist Church, where that's been held. Other than that, I'll pass everything over
All right,
to
man.
Matt.
No pressure, no pressure. So yeah, the Taco Fest was great. The weather was much better than last year. Very nice out. Good entertainment. Had almost 1,700 people. Tickets sold, more than 1,700. Lots of tacos, lots of drinks. And a really neat thing this year was partnering with the plein air competition for the city. So a lot more people got exposed to the art and the artwork and got to vote on it. And I talked to a lot of participants, and they said, and since I was wearing a taco hat, I got to get my picture taken with a lot of people. And but it was interesting to ask where people come, and a lot of them came. A few of them came because they were in the plein air competition. Some people just like tacos.
Some
and
people
some
just
people
wanted
like
to see your
music.
hat.
Yeah, some people yeah, but thanks everyone, and it's sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and the Tourism Advisory Group over there at the Chamber of Commerce. That did a great job pulling that off again, and great music and entertainment, and we had local groups and folklorico and bands, and it's great. And the library I want to compliment, they had the bookmobile out there, and their display in there was all about like Hispanic cooking and salsa and tacos. So it was really neat. They did a great job. So good cooperation just shows how the whole community coming together makes something like that happen. April 19th is the day of shredding with the Youth Commission at First American Credit Union and e-cycling. That'll be from 9 to 12. There's a great commercial on the internet that I've seen. Thanks to the PIO office for making that. Good job. And very creative. So I appreciate that. So 9 to 12, April 19th. And then this Saturday is Terminus Days downtown. So Terminus, if for those who don't know, is the original name of Casa Grande. When the railroad ended, it was very original, and that's where it terminated. So Terminus was the name, and I'm looking up the details here so I can give them accurately. And it begins at 9 a.m. downtown, and there's tours leaving from there about 9:30, and they have buses going out. One bus going to the mine, the Sonoran Copper, the old Asarco mine on this side of town, and then the other bus going to Kaywood Farms, and it's all free. But just check the website, cgmainstreet.org, because there's some dress code stuff if you do want to go on the tours. Also, there'll be a lot of the craft activities and stuff downtown starting at 10. There'll be storytelling, there'll be events, there'll be booths. So it'll be a lot of fun celebrating the 5 C's of Arizona, which are also the 5 C's of Casa Grande. So it'll be a lot of fun and tells a lot about our history here in town. And lastly, good weekend. I did do a lot of that, but scholarships, right? The Cesar Chavez Foundation did a great job, and then the Rotary Club had their Denim and Diamonds out of the Pinal County Fairgrounds. Great success. I want to thank everybody. I was involved in it. A lot of you guys came and participated and donated, and it was great. And the Rotary Club netted over $80,000 for our scholarship program for the next few years. And got to dress up in Denim and Diamonds, and we had a band outside, and the weather was pretty good for us, yeah. A little bit of wind at times, but it worked out really well. So I just want to thank the community again for coming together and supporting our youth, which is, I think, what we all want to do. So with that, I'll yield.
Good. And as you all can see, it's been a busy couple of weeks, that's for sure, with all the activities. So, no, the Rotary was great. You know, Larry, I know you're part of that committee, and Matt, and you guys have worked so hard. Yes, I know Dave Keene was over there serving too, so thank you for everything you did. It was a great event, and especially when you're there supporting the kids and the youth. And so for those of you that attended the Cesar Chavez, you know, I've been on that committee from the beginning, and we're in our 19th year. And so I'm glad that you all were there to see. You know, this event is a little bit different. We have the actual students there and presented their certificates. We haven't had a dinner since 2020, so we were excited to come back and have a dinner and award these 64 seniors from all over Pinal County. So thank you for doing that. Sorry I missed the public safety event. Again, so much going on that night and had other commitments, but heard it was a great night. I had some friends that went. Our budget retreat is coming up April 16th. I know our staff is working really hard trying to, just kind of manage through all the numbers and recommendations. So everyone be ready to, put your thinking caps on and spend some time all day on the 16th. We are, and I've talked about this several times, the Child Care Task Force. I know that we have stakeholders that are coming together to try to identify some of the concerns and solutions on the issues that we have with childcare throughout the city. So there is a survey that I think it's on the chamber. Is it on the chamber website? I think it's on the chamber website, right? If you are an employer, and if you can get on and take this survey to give us an idea of some of your employees, friends, family, and some of the concerns that they might have with childcare. This week is actually, I did a proclamation. It's the week of the young child. And so they had an event at Carr McNabb Park on Saturday. Really nice event with all the different agencies that provide tons of resources to our families and young children. So it was a really nice event with First Things First and some of the other agencies that provide these resources. We also, in the last couple of weeks, several of the council members and I met with Congressman Siscomani and Congressman Crane. So not all together. We couldn't have a quorum, so we kind of split up and met with the two congressmen, and they shared some of their things that are going on, nationally, they're both, you know, supporters of the Doge efforts, and talked about that they're focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse, but to be, you know, patient, that, you know, they're working through all of this, and told us if we ever, because we expressed our concerns with funding, and they said future funding, if there's something that's comes up, to make sure to let them know so they can, you know, see, you know, address those issues. So it was nice to see the congressman, and some of you have met them for the first time, so I'm glad that you were there. And I did want to just thank the police department, chief, on all of the different enforcements. You know, we talked about this at several meetings, that so many people are so concerned about, you know, some of the traffic, you know, speeding on on Pinal, and you did the traffic enforcement, and we had success with that. We appreciate it. The Thornton Road, you know, with the semis that were coming through, you know, a lot of concerns with that, and so our police department has been on top of that and making sure they're pulling over any speeding trucks, and, you know, weight limits, addressing some of the weight limits on those, and then also did an enforcement on the racing and speeding. We're getting, all of us up here are hearing from, you know, people complaining about some of the things happening in the neighborhood. So people notice that you are out there, you're addressing these concerns, and so I just want to thank you and the department for everything you're doing with that. The summer internship program, just, you know, we are going to be going, what are we in how many years are we in this internship program? Probably about 8 or 7. At least 9, right. So that closes on May 2nd. So if any of you have any family members that are in high school or college, they have to live in, is that right? It closes tomorrow. They start May 2nd. Oh, it closes tomorrow. Okay, I don't know why I thought May 2nd. So tomorrow, go online and make sure you do get on there. So, and then Steve Miller, our supervisor, is going to have a town hall on the 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. I think that's at the Recreation Center. Do you know where that is? Okay, so if anyone would like to go and address the county supervisor, please plan on going there. So I think with that, and then the fire station opening, we're looking forward to that, Chief, on the 24th at 9:30 a.m. So a lot of activities going on. We've all been super, super busy. So with that, I'll go ahead and go for a motion to close the meeting.
So move.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, close the meeting.